even though you knew it wasn't working.
Can I get a motion to move back into
Make the
public
motion
meeting?
to move back.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy, second. Mr. Bedworth, any discussion? All those in favor? It is unanimous. Could I ask someone to read and make the resolution at the bottom of page 1 on our green sheets?
I'll make the motion. Resolve that the Board of Education authorizes the board president and legal counsel to prepare a written decision reflecting the board's discussion in executive session on October 2nd, 2017 of a matter involving a particular student, and to take any other necessary and proper action to implement this resolution.
Second.
Second.
Nickerson, any discussion? All those in favor? And it's unanimous. Thank you. All right, with that, we can get back to finishing up our reports to the Board of Education. Mr. Colabufo, I don't know if you have a preference. Order, yeah. Yeah, I didn't know who you want to announce.
Well, at this time, then I can have Mr. Penrod.
You're getting a lot of airtime this year, man.
I'm thinking about raising my speaking fees, actually. I'm going to really quickly introduce the rest of my administrative team. Mrs. Smolnick as an assistant principal and Mrs. Scotch as an assistant principal. If they can come up here. They're doing a fantastic job this year, and we're really moving forward with a lot of things. I was so excited to be able to present to the board again that I thought probably a great thing to do would have you hear from some of the teachers actually who are implementing some of the things that we've been able to do since we've added a little bit of staff and we've made some changes to the schedule. So I'm going to, this is a self-named team, by the way. We call them Team 8-1. They call themselves, well, at least one of them calls themselves Team Awesome. And a couple of the members were able to be here tonight. Mr. Hatch, who teaches math, and Mrs. Pacific, who teaches science, and Mrs. Paradise, who teaches ELA, are here to present and represent their team and share some of the things. And they're going to have a Google slide presentation that they're going to start.
Our sound system's not working, so we're kind of using it as a sound.
Is that okay?
Just say testing.
Okay, testing. Yep. Okay, sorry for the technical difficulties. Hi, my name's Ellen Paradise. I'm the 8th grade English teacher on grade 8, Team 1. This is Brian Hatch, the math teacher, Emily Pacific, Kimberly Pacific, I'm sorry, the science teacher. And this year we're here to talk about the interdisciplinary teaming we've been doing with the students. We want students to have a positive experience and attitude towards middle school, and we think this is a good step towards that. So go ahead on the next slide. And we've called ourselves Team Awesome. Well, that didn't quite work out, but we'll keep going on. We'll soldier on. So last year, some of us sat on the IDEA committee, and we were able to observe different teams who use the interdisciplinary planning as a guiding principle in East Syracuse and Fulton. And we thought this model really helped increase in 21st century skills in the students. And we wanted to create a program tailored fit to our district's mission statement and to our school community. Next slide, please. Okay. Because we ultimately want students not to simply survive or tolerate middle school, we want them to be engaged, motivated, and happy. we've decided to go this route. And we find that it fits in with the 7 essential elements of middle school, where middle school really isn't just bigger kid elementary school or little kid high school. It's something completely different that deserves its own philosophy and working systems every day.
All right, is it working? Yep. On the first day of school, our entire team met here in the cafeteria, and we asked the students what they think is required to be a successful student. Most of the students linked success with academic achievement. And then what we did is we showed this video which focuses on the personal qualities necessary for success. Now, you have to hold the bottom. Make sure you hold it with your whole hand at 6
This is what students really need to hear.
It's not working.
Okay, so basically in this video, he talks about how student achievement isn't linked to academic success, but really it's linked to the ability of each student to be a good citizen in the classroom and in the school community as a whole. So we started out the year by discussing that instead of placing an emphasis on academic achievement. So it was to get them to understand that they're members in this community.
And it also just talked about how teachers cared about their students as individuals. All right, and then after the video, we asked students to collaborate on this topic. This is the stuff they came up with here on their own. Students realize to be successful, it takes more than academic achievement. It takes traits like perseverance and grit, which shows personal development, one of the essential middle school elements.
So to make things make a little more sense for our middle school learners, you want to flip the slide for me? Thank you. We decided this year we were going to work as a team on a lot of things, such as we established clear and common team expectations and procedures that we're using across all the core classes so students are less confused and they know what to expect. And we hope that will build a really safe community for the students. And then you can hit the slide again. And one of the things we're also doing is having students work on 21st century skills of collaboration, communication, creativity, and problem solving at a bi-monthly Monday meeting. We just had one today.
During the Monday meetings, we do team building activities. We work on character education. We do celebrations like birthdays, and we announce school events. Hold on. Wait, could you pause that? Here we have some examples of our team building activities. Oh, you could. You can't quite hear, but they're really into it as students. They're having a good time.
Cheering each other on.
And this was actually on the first day of school right there. Oh, we missed one. That's all right. Oh. Okay, so during the team building activities, students must work together with each other to accomplish a goal. We want students to encourage and support each other.
This is today.
This was kind of like a bingo where they had different things they had to ask each other, and they had to get to know each other and find out who might be a Steelers fan. So they had to go around asking each other, and they had to make sure they had different signatures throughout the paper, and they had to talk with everybody. So it was a good little get to know each other. All right, sure.
So we're hoping that it will help students work together more easily in the future, and then maybe when they're older, work with, out in the workforce, they can work more easily with people they maybe don't know, so they can accomplish more. One of the key things on our team we've always done is we've had a character education component, and this year we're putting a spotlight on character traits that successful students possess. This month the character trait is respect, and we just introduced that. The PTO is so generous, they gave us a little mini grant so we can give students a reward at the end of the month if they are chosen of the student of the month. And today we had students write down what it means to show respect to peers and to school staff and just a variety of people. And these are just some of the answers. I was really impressed with what they came up with. Is it still me? Sorry. We're a little silly.
All right, on Friday, we have a field trip to Camp Tallulah, which will allow students to work on 21st century skills in STEM in an outdoor setting. The students will be doing things like canoeing, ropes course. They're going to dredge the bottom of the pond and see what kind of lives down there. And they're also going to do a map quest where they have to go around and finding locations and taking pictures of teams. So we thought this would fit in right with what we're doing. Another way we are focusing on 21st century skills is during achievement time. We are focusing on interdisciplinary and STEM projects, such as a build scale project. One of our projects, the students have to research and write about a famous building, and then they have to build a model to exact proportions. This involves computer research, writing, math, and social studies skills. And this goes into Mr. Penrod.
Still working? Okay. So one of the things they're really working on is building the interpersonal skills between the kids, so kids feel comfortable taking risks with each other. You know, as you get up into more application, more critical thinking, you're asking kids to take academic risks. They really need to feel comfortable in that setting, because we all know that we work with different people every day. As an adult, you're kind of expected to go into that situation with those skills, but they're really working on building them, using a little bit of the flexible scheduling time that's built into the schedule, and using that achievement time, working towards more of those interdisciplinary skills and more of those critical thinking and problem solving skills. Integrating technology into things. The team's been fairly lucky. We had a lot of changes and shifts in teams this year. These folks met together over the summer because they knew last year that there wasn't going to be much change on their team. So they spent a lot of time over the summer thinking and planning and how are we going to do this and what's it going to look like and what do we really want to focus on. So I wanted to highlight some of their hard work and the efforts they've put into making this year a success for their students. So thank you very much.
I'd like to thank them, all of you for coming here. Midway through last year, I noticed your excitement. You would contact your principal. Principals would contact me to go on different STEM visits, whether it was Carthage or whether it was ESM. And it really started with the staff. I mean, the students can't really get excited unless they see the teachers excited and the administrators excited. And every time I walk into the middle school, you can feel that excitement. The kids are talking about it as they walk out for busing, the things that they were doing. And anytime you have students talking about learning and they're excited about it is always great to see. So I thank you all for what you're doing.
Can I just ask one question? So is there just one team, or is there a bunch of teams?
There are 3 teams per grade level. So there are
3 teams. So is every student in the middle school part of a team?
yes.
Yes. Awesome.
Any other comments or questions? Great, thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. And now, Mrs. Ladd, I believe, presentation on our fund balance and reserves.
So it's just going to be on forever. Yeah. All right. Oh, you can't see it. It's down low. I wanted to talk to you tonight on the night that the auditors were here, to make sure that the board has a really good understanding of what we're asking you to do with regards to fund balance. Let me see when. Well, you can see most of it, I guess, right here. I don't know, Tim.
It's a cost. I'll buy it.
That's not in the budget. Be careful. Yeah, yeah. Until you took the stick away from it, yeah. Tonight on the board packet for everybody's approval is a bunch of different items, a bunch of different, the financial statements, the SC3, the management letter, the response. But one of the things that's in the action items that I really wanted to talk about is the board's approval of putting some money into a reserve fund. So I just wanted to go through the process quickly because there's new requirements out there that there be some education in this area about reserves for the board, and I wanted to do a quick little overview of what we have in our district and what we're asking you to do. So basically, to make a really, really long story short, assets minus liability equals fund balance. The big topic of discussion always is that fund balance. What is it? What does it do? What do we want to do with it? What are our goals? So a government's fund balance is basically its working capital. The various different pieces of it, reserves, non-spendable, committed, assigned, and unassigned is the one that you can't see, are designations of how liquid that cash is. Some of it's liquid, it's operating every day, through to being reserved, which is you can only use it for the item that it's set aside or reserved for. So fund balance now, there's been a new GASB. The government accounting standard boards come up with new regulations every year for financial statements. And so a couple of years ago, they went to a GASB 54, which turns our components of fund balance into 5 categories. The first one is the non-spendables, which you can read it, but basically this money is designated and it's contractually required to be used in somewhere, so it's basically intact, not very liquid, and it's, I don't want to say committed because that's another form, but it's not spendable in its current form. Restricted, which is what we call reserved. These are amounts that are constrained to a specific use. The district has established right now a tax tertiary reserve and a service and termination reserve, which is called an employee benefits. EBLAR is the terminology you'll use when you're at your various trainings. And tonight we're asking to add another reserve, which is the workers' comp reserve. Committed is another form of fund balance. It includes amounts that can only be used for specific purposes. And I'm not going to get into that because the district does not have any committed funds. Assigned funds are constrained for intended specific use purposes. All encumbrances are assigned and any appropriated fund balance is assigned. And unassigned is basically your operating cash of a district. New York State real property tax law limits this to be within 4% of the district's budget. So basically, once you get to a year end and you close a year, if you have 4% in your unassigned and you have accounted for all your other committed, encumbered, unappropriated reserves, anything that you are over should be put into reserves if you have the breathing room, I guess I want to say, or the need to do that. So what reserve funds are available? There's basically two different authorizations of reserves. They're authorized under the education law, and up there, actually there's 7 of them, are the various reserves that there are available to school districts. We currently have a tax tertiary reserve fund. And under general municipal law, there's another 7 reserves that are available to school districts. And we currently do have the employee benefit accrued liability fund. Down here, the green on the bottom that you can't see is the workers' compensation reserve fund, which is the one that we're recommending for this year end. There is one other one that is not used very often, but I put it up here because we're aware of it because of Mexico and Oswego, is the Nuclear Facility Tax Reserve Fund. So essentially, when you get to fund balance, what you're doing is managing fund balance, and there's a lot of different goals there. Basically, it's to smooth your cash flow as you go through your year. You want to operate without needing to borrow, and you also want to make sure that you maintain a decent fund balance so that you can have strong credit ratings. Unappropriated fund balance, your goal is generally you want to maintain the 4% for the following year's operating budget. Your appropriated fund balance is what you are using to build the revenues of the next year's budget. As I hope you're very used to now, we generally appropriate $1 million from a current budget into the next year's revenue source. And down on the bottom, you can't see it here, are your transfers to reserve funds, which is your long-range planning techniques. So tonight, for our long-range planning use, we're going to appropriate $1,160,902 into a workers' compensation reserve fund. That'll be there. Essentially, you have to have a purpose to have a reserve. The district participates in the OCM BOCES Workers' Comp Consortium, which is basically districts in central New York. I believe there's 28 districts that participate in that Workers' Comp Consortium, and that's where we purchase and facilitate all of our workers' comp. In there, there's I believe it's a $12 million liability for incurred but not recorded, and those financial statements list right out by the district how much of that liability belongs to you. And ours is well over the 1.16 million. So we have the purpose and we have the liability to reserve this fund. And this is the auditor's recommendation. So this gives us our fund balance this year at close. It's going to be a little bit tough to see, but those will be our 3 restricted reserved funds, with our new one being the workers' comp. We, in the assigned category, are our encumbrances and our appropriated fund balance, and you can't see it underneath there. I think you guys have it in front of you. The unassigned, which is our operating cash, is right at the 4% with just over $3 million, and then the non-spendables at $2.6 million. And that's made up, I want to talk about that a little bit. That's made up of $1.36 million that happened this year. We have moved to a minimum premium health insurance policy, and that required us to put cash in a secured bank account. Basically, when we moved from our traditional indemnity policy to the minimum premium, it's still an insured product, an insured plan, but Excelis gave us back reserve that they were holding for us to hold for us. So that cash came in and has to sit. So as we move forward into this next year, we'll do some long-range planning. Usually do that about December time, and we'll get into these numbers more. And it's hard to see because you can't see this bottom. But 2011, our total fund balance is about $9 million. And as you can see, as you move forward for these last 6 years, we have decreased our fund balance every year. So this year, for the first time in a long time, we're actually going to go on the opposite and increase our fund balance. This slide, I love this slide. It's basically, we have a new tool that I haven't been able to get in front of you much. I mean, do a better job this year as we do our planning. But this is our operating fund balance trend. And as you can see over the last 5 years, our fund balance has been decreasing, which is not good for us when it comes to credit ratings and for operating capital. Moving forward, that's going to go up in the year that we're closing right now. We've had a decent year, so we're going to be able to increase our fund balance. Perfect timing for us because with the passing of the $40.8 million capital project, increase in fund balance gives us better credit rating. Better credit rating will give us a much better interest rate when it comes to close on the large serial bonding that we'll be doing at the end of the next 2 years. How much is too much? How much is too little? Again, the audience can't really see this, but we can see it here. That same forecast 5 gives us the ability to look at, I just pulled all the districts in Oswego County to compare us to the other districts. It shows the fund balances by the category, But the part that's interesting is the revenues as a percentage of fund balance, which is your budget. So if you see the line that's going across the tops of all of these, you can see the percentages of fund balance that other districts have. Sandy Creek on the end, 45.25%. Ours, you can't even see it. It's down so low. Its rate, last year we ended at 9.5%. So when you look at other districts as a gauge, we definitely are well below the percentage of fund balance that districts in our own county have. Mexico, you can't really use. It's very, very high, but it's because of the nuclear plant. They put huge, and have had to put huge money into that nuclear power plant reserve because that keeps coming and going with their pilot agreements. And when I say coming and going, if it comes on, it's like, $45 million. And then if it goes off, they don't pay that. I mean, it's a huge impact for them. So that's why they've been able to have that huge reserve. So that's kind of an outlier.
What about, Maureen, what about APW?
They have large reserves.
I was going to say, so they're the example of the audit by the comptroller and got slapped on the wrist for having more than 4%.
Yep. But they do have a board that has said they're good with that. They're, they've made their changes, they've downsized, and they're going to carry these reserves.
Yep.
Any thoughts, questions for the good of the order? So we'll get into more long-term planning in the next couple months. But I just wanted you to be really understanding of the asking for the workers' comp reserve tonight.
And Maureen, just based on, because I had asked you this question before, but I want the whole board to hear it. So our auditor had recommended this as well, as far as putting that money into this fund.
Yes, and actually I should say that the audit committee met ahead of this. Mr. Patch, Ms. Nicholson, and Mr. Loyer were in there with them with the superintendent and actually our district treasurer. But yes, he was very, what do you want to say, positive about us putting some money into reserves because of how low they are and the fact that we have it available this year to do that.
Okay. Any questions? Nope. Thanks, Maureen. All right, with that, we're going to move into our open forum and board forum. We'll start with an opportunity for blue cards. We have one blue card this evening. The Board of Education has set aside this time as an opportunity for the community to address the board. To allow for public participation, a period not to exceed 30 minutes shall be set aside during the first part of each board meeting. Presentation should be as brief as possible. The board will not permit in public session discussion involving individual district personnel or students. Comments should be related to school matters and be limited to 2 minutes. We have one blue card this evening. Mrs. Linda House regarding the food pantry.
Thank you. Mrs. Wood has asked me a couple times if I would just come and speak briefly, and I can do that, believe me, about the food pantry. There are two aspects that I want to talk about. First is a thank you to our school district because you guys are amazing partners. Every time you have an event or anything, my food pantry at Divine Mercy Parish, which is the Central Square Community Food Pantry, is a recipient. Kevin Brazel did his basketball camps this summer, and at every one of them, he did a canned food drive. And I'm telling you, at one of the pickups, I had to use my pickup truck to get this food. So we're very, very grateful that you guys are amazing partners. It goes to character education. It can be integrated in everything you do, so please keep it up. We always need it. The second piece of this is that I have in my personal pantry 200 registered families. That seems like a lot, but when I hear about the number of free and reduced lunches that we have, we're not getting to the people. And that's where I'd like all of you to remember that we're there and what we're there for. I cover the entire Central Square School District within Oswego County There is a food pantry in Brewerton that handles Onondaga County. We also have one on the North Shore, but I have never turned away anybody from Cleveland, Constantia, or Bernards Bay, because for many of them it's a lot easier because they're coming this way to drop kids off at school or go to work or whatever. We're open on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 1, but I have been there on many times where I've been called in for an emergency. Most of you have my phone number, so don't be afraid to use it if you know somebody's in need. Please make sure your nurses are aware of us. You have an amazing backpack buddy program in the middle school and the high school, but that number's not translating to parents coming and utilizing my services. So I don't know how we can get that disconnect fixed, but I know that there are people out there in need that we can get to, and the teachers and the nurses and everybody on the front lines, you know who they are, and you can get them to us. But again, thank you for everything you do, because this school district is amazingly generous to us. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them, but I can't imagine there would be anything, because I was so very thorough. Actually, I did make flyers one time, and I don't know whatever happened to them. They were meant to go in the backpack. I had a flyer made up with the hours and stuff for the 3 different pantries. I even tried having evening hours, thinking maybe some of the parents are working and that would be difficult for them to get here during the day. I would be willing to come to your open houses. Whatever you want me to do, I will be there. But I'll get the flyers back to the schools again. I always thought it would be good to put them out there. I think we put a link, or somebody was going to put a link on the website, and that's great. But I just know that there are people out there that we're not getting to that are really in need of help. So that's the only purpose I'm there for.
Thank you for your efforts.
Great. With that, we're actually going to move into something that's a little bit different, I guess, for the public and the board just to know. So I talked to Mr. Colabufo and our board clerk, and whenever we have items that we discussed in the previous meeting that we don't come to resolution on, we're going to put it as unfinished business. That's going to be the first thing we discuss in the open forum, and that way we come to some sort of resolution, whether it's to move forward or just be done with that discussion, and then we'll go to the regular open forum. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Colabufo just to follow up on last time we talked about the idea of some full-time floating substitutes.
Yeah, so originally, in looking at this, and it's not a unique Central Square problem, we averaged, last year, factual information, we averaged 36 teachers a day that were absent, but absent for a number of reasons. Could be sick, personal day, bereavement day, but also part in there is part of their conferences that they go through My Learning Plan to go to, also CSCs and annual reviews. So what we're looking at now is it's trending. The pattern right now seems to be about 25 to 35 that are out, and out of that it's probably 15, half of it I would say, are due to sickness or bereavement. Or personal days. So that really, in a sense, is what all districts are struggling with right now, is just the inability to get subs. We raised the pay for subs, and it's still a struggle to actually get subs. So it had come up with the last one, a possible idea of a floating sub. So to do that, again, it would have to be hiring a full-time position. So then we get into a whole thing about certifications and how would we do that, even if we said, okay, we're going to have 1 or 2 at the elementary, 1 or 2 at the secondary. But again, looking at this, it's not a drop in the bucket compared to overall how many classrooms have subs in them. So then a board member had a pretty good idea, and I looked into it regarding what it would look like to hire like 30-day positions. And when I checked that out from legal, actually Dave Cirillo was with labor relations. I still talk to him about these things because he's great. And he said that, no, it's not legal because it gets into an unencumbered position. So basically it's saying you can't create a long-term position for a position that doesn't exist. So in a way, they would look at that as a way to try to get out from paying benefits. And again, it's one of those situations that to do this would be a drop in the bucket. We need to look at the big picture and what we're doing. Part of that is when PD is offered. Part of that is, and myself, I'll take responsibility, is I very seldomly, if ever, have denied a teacher from taking a personal day on a blackout day. Because I look at this, and we're a family business, and I don't want to say to somebody, because there are pretty legitimate reasons. So going into that, it's just something that I'm looking at. We talk about it at Chiefs meetings all the time because we're not unique in that. But the idea of the floating sub, unless we couldn't do 30-day subs, which is 1 day shy of getting benefits. But if the district were to explore what the cost would be, cost benefit of having these, right now, if our numbers per day were a lot smaller, it would seem like it's beneficial. Right now, with the numbers that we have, employing that right now, going that route doesn't seem it's really the cost-effective thing to do.
So any follow-up questions on that? Yeah, Chance, obviously you brought up the topic, so.
No, not just follow-up questions, but just comments, because we talked about the bus driver situation and the substitutes there. So just with the discussion, I think there's a lot of lost communication to the public as far as what it takes to be a substitute. And with the benefits off the table, I know people say, well, there's no draw because there's no benefits, but there's a lot of, even within our own school district, families with parents that have put their career on hold because they're raising a family, and it just might not be conducive for them, but if they know what it takes to be a sub, they might just be more interested in signing up. So if we can get Heather to do,
I'll speak
something.
to that. Yeah, so Chance had actually contacted me, and I actually contacted Heather Shush, who's our PR person for City BOCES, and John Pierce and Yolanda to really get Heather Shush exactly what the criteria is, let's say in this case, to be a sub bus driver or to be a bus driver. And then what it would be, starting salary, all the requirements that are needed, because I do agree. I think there are people out there that are overwhelmed before they even know what the requirements are, because we are very short bus drivers right now. And so we're very short subs in general, but especially with the drivers, because that's affecting our routes. Sports times are getting pushed back, and this is happening. We checked, and Jim Dranzak checked, and John Pierce checked. This is happening in Onondaga County and in Oswego County. So I agree 100%. That's a great way to get that out there on Facebook, on our website, and any events that we have to actually have on poster boards. Are you interested in being a driver and actually have all the requirements? Are you interested in being a teaching assistant? Are you interested in being, even with teachers? Some people right now don't realize there are different pathways. It's not the traditional way anymore. You can come right from the career world and go right into education at a much quicker way if you're in the business sector, to be a business teacher or to be a technology teacher. It's a quicker pathway, and I agree. We need to do a better job explaining that.
Just curious, what is the pay for subs? Is it like $110 or something like that?
$100.
And are we able to pull teachers from like neighboring counties with that pay? Because I know you had mentioned that it was kind of on the upper echelon in our county, but like someone from Onondaga County, I just feel like there's so many other districts that pay way more than that we're not going to be able to pull them from those districts.
Well, part of it too, in talking at Chiefs meetings, is where people live. I mean, most people aren't going to, spend what they would make in their gas money to drive out to Oswego County from Onondaga County. But again, Central Square is located in a unique situation just off the 81 corridor that we possibly could. We could do that. I can pull what neighboring districts are paying for their sub teachers and then give us a better idea.
I want to say like Beeville's pretty high up there. And there's North Syracuse. I mean, there's some that pay a lot more.
I think we heard, though, is it this fair statement that most districts, regardless of what they're paying, Maureen, are still in that significant shortage, correct?
I just say that,
Last year, we went up last year significantly, and actually our no-fill percentage rate was slightly higher.
yeah, I mean, this profession in general just doesn't pay very much, so.
And we have a lot less, when you talk to local colleges, we have a lot less students going into education right now. So but there was an idea that one of the business teachers shared with me, that there are districts now that when students are in college, as part of their, they have to get a certain amount of hours just going to observe and then student teaching. They actually are now scheduling classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesday, Thursday. Those students in college are actually allowed to be able to come in and sub and to get pay. So every district has a different policy on that. When I was a student at Lemoyne, my sophomore year, there were some of the kids that I played baseball with that on breaks, they weren't even certified yet, and they were going and they were subbing in their districts. A lot of them were really rural areas. A lot of it was Adirondacks where they were from. But because of the shortages, even back in 1997, districts were getting creative to draw people in that aspired to be teachers and doing that. But again, that's something we would have to look at. But we definitely have a shortage right now.
Other questions or discussion on that? All right. The next one is discussion on everyone's favorite voting delegates guide for the annual business meeting of the New York State School Board Association. I sent this out to the board. It's a long document. We don't have to go through everything, but if you had a chance to read through it, there are, I think, 35 resolutions, and Lori is our voting delegate, so she'll be representing the board at this convention. The New York State School Board makes a recommendation on what they want, whether they think that the resolution should be adopted or not, and the reasons why. But when Lori votes, she's representing us, so we have to give her some direction. So we don't have to talk about each one, because the assumption is going to be that if we don't discuss one tonight, then Lori goes with the recommendation of the New York State School Board Association. So that being said, are there any that warrant discussion or that we want to give Lori any guidance on?
There's the one I spoke with you about before the meeting. I don't know if it's the 6th one.
Yeah, proposed resolution 6, resolve that the New York State School Board Association supports a rigorous process for granting teacher certification. The New York State School Board Association is recommending that be adopted.
Right. So I would just say that I personally would be against that with the shortage of teachers that are entering into the program. We're just going to make it more difficult. I mean, they already have to get their master's degree. If I had to get a certification every time I switched areas, I'd probably have 20 certifications by now. So I personally am not in support of that, but I might be alone on that. I don't know. My thoughts.
Yes, I would just add on that one, while I don't have a problem with the idea of the resolution, it's like a lot of their resolutions, frankly, it's vaguely worded, there's no details, and so it's tough to say that we support something when we don't know where they're going to go with it. So I'd be in favor of saying that we're against that one, just because I don't think it's clear enough.
It's very unclear, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
New York State already has one of the most rigorous programs for teachers in the country, the most rigorous. So those are things, Phil, to your point, that if we want people to come into the profession, yet we make it even more difficult to do. Right.
A lot of their stuff, when I was reading through that, seemed to be pretty vague. I'd like to see them give us more details, so when we were trying to decide what we wanted to do, it would be easier for us, but the 2 years I've been here for this, not a lot of details.
Yeah, so we can ask Lori again, because she has the opportunity if she wants to get up to the microphone there, so she can ask that in the future we would really like more detail. A lot of times this does lead to a more formal proposition of actually what they're going to lobby for and more of a statement of fact. But so on number 6, we actually should vote on this. So on number 6, I'll make a motion that we direct our voting delegate to not recommend adoption of resolution number 6. Second?
I will second that.
Mr. McCarthy, any discussion? All those in favor? All right, so we will not be voting in favor of number 6. Any others to be discussed? I have one, which is actually a proposed bylaw amendment. A, it's the very first thing in the document, which is resolved that Articles 6 and 8 of the bylaws of the New York State School Board Association shall be amended to expand membership on the Board of Directors to include a director from the New York State Caucus of Black School Board members. The same proposal was on the docket last year, got voted down for what I think was the reason I'm going to state, which is simply that the representation that they're looking to get on the Board of Directors is already represented amongst all the school boards. I mean, there are predominantly black school districts in New York State, and there are obviously a large number of black school board members, and many of them spoke up last year saying that they represented what they thought were the concerns and views. They are already a part of the kind of non-voting portion of it, just so that they can make sure they're, they asked for that years ago. But that's a big change to the bylaws, and there are a number of other organizations that exist that would then have every right to say, why don't we have a voting members as well? So, I recommend that we do not go along with the New York State School Board Association.
Is that a motion?
It is. I recommend that we do not support bylaw amendment A.
I will second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. So outside of that, we don't have to vote on it, but outside of that, we're saying to Lori, go along with the recommendation of the New York State.
I actually think we should discuss each bullet statement in depth.
Excellent. I think that's a good plan, Tim.
All 32.
All right.
Take his cables away again.
Awesome. That is done. And then there was one other one on the, it's not really unfinished business, but Mr. Kolabupa, I think, if you can kind of give us just a recap of the formation of the College Career Readiness Committee, and then we'll talk about members on it.
Yeah, and really that's only on here because to have board members on the committee, that's why it's on here. It's not about the creation of it that we're getting permission to do that. So the College and Career Readiness Committee, again, this is something that I feel very strongly about. I take part in the Chamber of Commerce, in going to the Lions Club, the Lionesses, Legion. I believe that there are a lot of people in our community that we really need to be better at tapping the resources. So the essence of this committee, it will consist of teachers, administrators at the building level and district level. It'll consist of students. Primarily, it will, secondary students to really start with, based on when we would be able to have these meetings. And it would be parents, and it would be business owners / workers. And the purpose of this is to really tap into the greater community. Because sometimes, and I'm a product of it, elementary school, middle school, high school, college, right into teaching. And I'm in the education world. And sometimes we surround ourselves with that mind of thinking, when the business world in some ways do things that could be more efficient, more effective. And I really believe, marrying those two, the education world that we grew up in, the teachers and administrators, and then the business people, because the goal should be at the end of this that we can come up with the attributes of a Central Square graduate. If we just surround ourselves on this committee with educators, then I feel that it's a missed opportunity for all of those people. When I go to Chamber and I talk to George Rossi, and he says, when people are going for positions, and he starts listing off some attributes that they really need to have. The reason why we have students on there is because it gives them the opportunity to be able to hear directly from these business owners as to what these qualities are, which again goes right back to what the middle school's presentation about soft skills, about collaboration, about teamwork. It's not just the academic piece, which is strong, but it's also the ability to work on a team. And I think that in our country, that's something that really, really, truly needs to be better, attended to. This will also, part of this will be local college admissions officers, Syracuse University, SUNY Oswego, Ithaca, Lemoyne, as I had said, Cortland. I was part of the committee that really got this started in my last career at ESM, and it really benefited the students. The staff really was excited about this. It really turns into a meeting a month, At ESM, it's because their high school starts at 9:30, so it was done as a breakfast type thing. We can't really do that here unless we started it at like 6 o'clock. So that's not going to happen. So it's going to be determining when we can do this, that we can get a good cross section. But I know that the local business people are really excited about this.
So, a couple questions. One, if you had to ballpark it, how many people do you expect to be on the committee? Ballpark.
I would say it comes out to be, we have them in a cafeteria, probably about 12 tables with about 6 people at each table. So it's a good mix of parents, community members, teachers, whatnot. I would say I would shoot, if possible, to have 2 board members that could be a part of it. Would be great.
So for the board, this is just one of those things. I'm mentioning it because it's never been exercised, nor would I. Our bylaws, the board president has the right to just appoint people to committee. I don't know why we would ever do that, because if you don't have an interest, I wouldn't appoint you. But I'd love to know who's interested. Now, as board president, I have a they call it ex officio seat on each committee. So I don't know if you want that to count as one of the 2 or not.
No, I mean, it could be more, but I just don't want to add.
Right.
To your guys.
I think Tim expressed.
So if I can make a
interest earlier.
comment, I'm not a big committee person, as pretty much everybody knows. This is one I had offered my services if so be it. If others want to participate, that's fine too. But I did, in an email, share with you, I would be more than happy to serve on it. And again, that's a stretch for me because not a big committee guy.
No, it's great. Thanks, Tim. Does anyone else have a burning desire? And again, it is fine if you don't. I know many of you are already on one or multiple committees, but I do plan on attending as well. And,
yeah,
I will. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to volunteer for it if I'll throw my name in the hat. And more would be better.
Okay. Mr. Bedworth, you're interested?
I was just going to say, depending on what time they were doing it and where I was with travel, I'd be more than willing to participate if I had the time, but not knowing enough details, it's hard for me to say for sure.
Yes.
Is the first, excuse me, Tom, is the first one already scheduled for that Wednesday, or is that not?
No,
is there something scheduled for something over?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's what I was just going to say. So there were a lot of teachers that were excited about this, and they wanted me to find out when the first one was going to be held over at ESM, and it's October 25th. So we're bringing over 12 staff members to be part of this, and it's at each table you have some students, you have some parents, you have local business people, you have the person from Siemens, from King & King. And again, I absolutely want to tap into more of Siemens than we have in the past. When you look at other districts like East Syracuse, Manoa, and so many things that they were just given by Siemens, we have done the same energy proficiency survey that they have done, but just we haven't asked them. There's no strings attached. They have money set aside educationally. They'll be there, and I think that when you go there, you're going to be excited to see the stuff that is going on. And again, it's not reinventing the wheel. If this is something that we can just, again, we're not ESM. And I don't want people to think that we have to be that way, but if the structure is set up in a way that we can add to it and make it unique in our own, I think that's a plus.
So if the board members interested in the committee are available, do you want them to attend that, or do you want that, is that just staff? Which is fine.
Yeah, they asked if we could go like 8 or 9, and we're already at 12. So I was just thinking that I would just take copious notes and I would share that with the board members. And then once the staff, I just wanted to get as many of our staff members from the buildings to be able to see our counselors, because part of this is the college career pathways and making and aligning the courses that we offer. So the local business people could say, you know, for my career, and we've got a lot of talent in our community right now that they feel it's untapped. That they could say, I took this course, and those are things I think would be amazing. And then something that can be added on to this is the possible for internships within our own district that I know Jeff King is excited about, because there are people in our community at Central Square that are saying, I've got something, I could take interns, and I really want to explore that.
All right, great. So for Pearl, so Mr. McCarthy, Mr. Patch, Mr. Bedworth, and myself, we'll be happy to participate. Just let us know once things get scheduled, and
absolutely
take it from there.
Again, sure, nobody else, I mean, seriously, I'm okay if.
Well,
Tim, I'm not going to take your position, but is this going to be something that's going to be at the organizational meeting every year? There's going to be openings that people slide into when we go in other policy committees as well? Or just committees as well? So that, is it going to change every year, or is it like now or never?
Well, this committee isn't like, it's required to have the policy committee and required to have board members. There's no requirement for this type of policy. It's going to come up that we want to have more people on our district-wide technology committee. So that's going to be something, again, that we want to be able to tap some board members if they're interested in playing a role in that as well. I just was told that I would be talking too much if I got into that today, so.
I think we'll be negotiating as this goes forward, I can hear.
Yeah, so again, the dates are going to be confirmed, so if the makeup changes, that's fine. But for now, and go ahead and put Mrs. Fishman down as certainly being interested, and that's great. And to Tom's point, yeah, we have another one coming up, Technology Committee, so that's great. All right, with that, now we move to the true open forum part. So anyone have any topics that they would like to bring up for discussion?
I just want to do a shout out to the staff at Hastings Mallory Elementary for stepping up in a bad situation on Monday with the bus accident. I want to thank John Pierce, Yolanda Bertrand, and any others that came forth to help. I know a lot of the staff stayed late to contact parents, and I wanted them to know that their efforts are very much appreciated.
Great, thank you.
I have one, but I'm actually doing this for Reagan Parada, who was unable to be here today. And I want to just say, you know what, I want to say why she's not here today, because she's an amazing kid. She volunteers on the football games and with the water. Well, it was unfortunate, just a fluke accident that somebody had backed up and bumped her in the head. And so it was a minor concussion. She's fine. She's cleared to do everything. But her mom called me and actually said, you know, if you don't actually go and tell her she can't come, she's going to be there. And we didn't want to put too much on her plate because she's an amazing person. If any colleges are looking, Reagan Parada. Amazing. So what she's saying is it was brought to my, so I'm speaking for her, it was brought to my attention by a multitude of students and faculty that our school's alma mater is meant to be something very special and something that each student brings with them after their time here at Central Square. It is recognized that there are student activities that sing the alma mater before every event, but it is hoped that we can bring the alma mater to every event here at Central Square. And on a side note, she said, Mrs. O'Malley and I were talking about how the situation, it's just basically saying that it's sports. Not everybody knows the alma mater. And if we could do something more about teaching it at our elementaries. So it is unique. It's part of the school's history, and it is very special. I had mentioned it. One of the first things that I remember 3 years ago was in it was the band before they came out. No, it was Winter Guard. And you couldn't see it, but you could just hear them, and it was just part of their tradition. And it was a really kind of cool thing. So I told Reagan that I would bring this up, and that during open session, that we put more of an emphasis on the alma mater.
But I'd like to ask that it's done the way we used to do it, instead of the way Jeff King wants it done.
Let's move for the topic.
Okay. All right, on that note.
I think Lori means shouting at the end.
Huh? The shouting at the end.
Oh, you like the shouting?
Yes, I do.
It's meant to be done, yeah.
That's right.
So I love the idea, I love the alma mater. My humble opinion, it's not a board thing, that's not a policy thing, but whatever administration wants to do as far as promoting it at sporting events and other things, I think is great. Love it.
Well, I know that we have now, he's not approved yet, right? He is approved.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll hold that until he's approved.
Never mind, I'll keep that commentary myself. I have a couple of items for open forum. I went to the Oswego County School Board Association, because I'm your delegate to that. Thanks for that one. I went to that meeting last week. There are 2 dates in October that I want to make sure everyone's aware of, and all of our RSVPs should go to Pearl, and she'll do one RSVP for our district. But I will say, I think both of these are good and important. One I already sent out to you, October 16th from 6 to 7:30 at City is a, for lack of a better term, a mental health kind of dialogue, and led by a couple of people, I believe, from Onondaga Madison BOCES. And they're supposed to be, it's open to staff, board members, anyone that wants to go. So some of us have already RSVP'd, but if you are still interested, you have until Monday to get that into Pearl. And then also on October 30th, that is more of a social event, but I would really like to encourage you to attend. Central Square, quite frankly, has been not well represented when you look at like the last 10 years in this organization. They're getting back up and running, and they're going to be an important thing for us to have lobbying for us. You know, as a county that frankly often we're part of the side discussion after Onondaga County. But that's at the Ice House in Mexico. New board members that were elected this year, it's specifically there's going to be introductions of all the new board members from the 9 component districts. And again, RSVPs for that are due by October 9th. Where is it? When? Oh, October 30th. Night before Halloween. Right? Yeah. So those are those two. The next one, which you all got a copy next to your folder, is the superintendent timeline, the review timeline. So I sent that out to you in an email, just a couple quick notes on it. It's really important. Number one, the superintendent's review is supposed to be an annual process. And there is, quite frankly, a little bit of conflict right now in it, only in that we have one policy that directs us to conduct a superintendent's review and has some timelines in there. We also have an employment contract, sorry to bring that up in public session, Tom, but I won't violate anything in it, that has a process in there, and there's some conflict between the two. So Tom has graciously agreed that if we were to adopt the timeline that's in front of you, he's good with that for this year. In the meantime, we need to direct to the policy committee, and I don't have, can I see your copy for a second? Sorry. To the policy committee to look at policy 4240. And it needs to, we're looking for recommendations so that it will match up and not conflict with the employment contract of Mr. Colabufo. So if we, I don't know, is there a policy committee meeting on the schedule already?
Yep, Linda should be emailing November, second meeting in November.
Okay.
Because we have some policies out to start people to look at.
Okay.
4240 needs to be added to that.
Is it before a board meeting? Those are the
Yes.
6th and the 20th.
Yes, it's the second one, Tim, and November.
So it's the night of the,
Yes.
before the meeting on the 20th, okay.
Okay, and those were sent to each individual
They
committee?
will be.
Okay, all right.
So I'm looking for any feedback or questions on the timeline that's proposed, and then also to understand that in there is a, this is a printed copy, but in the email is a link to the suggested evaluation tool. That's for this year. If we don't make a change to it, then that is the tool we use going forward. And if we want to change it next year, Mr. Colabufo needs to agree to our change, because the evaluation tool, it's in his contract, he has the right to approve any changes to it after the first year. So this is I don't want to say generic, but a good baseline tool that the New York State School Board Association uses. It, in my opinion, definitely covers all the areas that we'd be talking about when we look at his goals, and all of the goals that we've talked about as a district, they're covered in there. And we don't have to recreate the wheel and start from scratch with it. So
And I'll agree to any one of them. If you want to take out those 5 annual physical exams, I'll agree with that.
So any issues with the timeline laid out there?
Is this tool we can go in and out of? There was a couple years ago that we, once you went in it, you couldn't save stuff or whatever the hell it was. I forget.
Yeah. So the tool, what I'm proposing is that we use the tool or the layout that they're doing.
Okay.
I would put it into basically private Google link so that, yes, you can go into it whenever you want and, yeah, access it as needed. And then we're also committing to everything in that timeline. So in February, we would have an executive discussion around superintendent effectiveness at that time. That's just kind of a midpoint check-in. And then all the dates for Mr. Colabufo's submission of goals, updates on the goals, our review process, and everything is laid out there. And then I would ask, assuming that we adopt this tonight, that then Pearl, as our clerk, puts these reminders on our meeting so that none of it falls by the wayside. Because quite frankly, in the past, we've done some of our superintendents a disservice by not following up on the annual review, and it's one of our primary responsibilities. So, everyone good with what's proposed there?
Yes, sir.
All right. Second one, which is on the bottom half of the page, is we also have not always done a board self-evaluation, and again, it's in our bylaws and our policy that we do one. So I'm recommending, we have some time, so it's more food for thought, but by November 20th, I'm proposing that the board adopts our objectives and measurable targets. By January 1st, we agree on a tool. Again, I suggest we go with the one from the New York State School Board Association so that we don't have to recreate it. And then everything else is outlined there. So if you can just take a look at that, if you have any thoughts or feedback at the next board meeting, we would look to kind of take some more action on it. So Pearl, if you could, note that for the unfinished business for next one. And that is all I have. Anything else for open forum?
I just wanted to check on the bus situation since we're having parts fall off it as we go down the road. Field band, yeah.
Maureen, if you want to jump in any more specifics, he says field band, basically we're looking into that. It's one of the goals that we have given for our head mechanic and what's the best option. I just had this conversation out at West Genesee in the parking lot at the last band competition Saturday night with Ron Haldeman. He's looking at a couple different options. He's looking at the truck. Basically what they're looking at is what your need is. The space that is going to be needed on there. Is it what we have been doing with buses, but then looking at the condition of the bus, how old it is when we go to convert it. Because we're looking at it to be, again, efficient, effective, cost effective, but something that will be able to last. I know that they've done a lot of work to it and corrected some of the things like the door and whatnot, but long term, yeah, he's pricing things out for us right now.
The other reason why I brought it up was because coming back from that competition, the truck driver that was behind the bus came to me and said, you realize that we're having parts come off from this and I'm dodging them as we're driving down the road. So there's chunks of rust and things falling off as it's going down the road.
I was not aware, but I will absolutely look into that. Thank you.
Well, I can tell you a better story. My husband and Andy's father-in-law pushed the field band bus through the intersection on Route 11 and Route 31 one night when the winter guard bus broke down.
No, he wasn't barefoot.
But it was snowing.
It was snowing, it was.
Anything else for open forum? Okay, with that, I'll let you know, everything in G needs to be separate and read. So can I get a motion to accept G1, and whoever would like to make the motion needs to read that resolution.
I'll make a motion to accept G1. Motion by myself that the Central Square Central School District Board of Education hereby accepts the contract with the Pyramid Brokerage for the sale of the former district office.
I'll second.
Mr. McCarthy, Mrs. Nickerson with the second. Any discussion? I'll give one piece of discussion, which I had already asked Mr. Colabufo about, which is this contract is 1 year with Pyramid. I had questioned it only because every time we have renewed the Pyramid contract for the sale of Cleveland Elementary, it's a 6-month contract. And so wasn't aware of why the discrepancy, but I believe that the next time it comes up for renewal, we can go with a year so that we don't have to be doing that every 6 months. So, but the year is the standard kind of boilerplate template.
Yeah, and what I'll just say still publicly, we're still told that any day that could happen, go into the DEC. It's just waiting for the funding, but they were there. They literally went through the building and was figuring out where each, the sleeping
Cleveland,
quarters.
not the district office. Yeah.
Did I say that? Sorry.
No,
Cleveland,
sure.
elementary, yeah, Cleveland. So if anyone's still wondering, that literally could happen any day with the sale of that building.
All right, so with that being said, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on G1? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
I'll make a motion to accept G2, that the Central Square Central School District Board of Education hereby accepts the 2016-2017 Independent Audit Report.
Mr. McCarthy with the motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Bedworth, any discussion? All those in favor?
I just want to make one comment that I don't want to fail to recognize Maureen and your team. It was recognized by the auditor, your support of that folks, and how well you guys have done, so thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Here as well, Lisa Fox, and please pass along that to the rest of the team.
All those in favor of that motion? It is unanimous. We don't have to read G3, but G3 is the approval of overnight student trips. Can I get that motion?
I'll make a motion to accept G3.
I'll second.
Second, Mr. McCarthy with the motion, second by Ms. Wood. Any discussion? All those in favor? It is unanimous.
I'll make a motion to accept G4, that the Central Square Central School District Board of Education hereby approves the establishment and funding of the Workers' Compensation Reserve.
I'll second.
Sorry, who is the second? Mrs. Nickerson. Any discussion? All those in favor? It is unanimous. Now we are at the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to accept item H in its entirety?
I will make a motion to accept H in its entirety.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Wood. Any discussion on H?
Andy, I just have a follow-up question with respect to H7 with the,
Yes.
this is about the textbooks from Millard Hawk, but we did get a list of the books, and it looked like there were some library books included in there, and my question was, are those books able to, if they're just going to be thrown in the garbage, are the children in the school or in the school district given the opportunity to pick them and take them home if they want to, or?
I know at Hastings, Christie, they have them on a table, and they allow them to take them home if they're disposed of.
Okay, and if that is actually the case, I'm happy to hear that, but I've heard mixed opinions from different teachers and staff members at the different elementary schools as to what they're allowed to do, so as long as we can communicate that to everyone.
And being an elementary principal, which I was for 4 years, it's kind of middle management. So if our principal who's here, Amanda, was told a certain thing, I want to make sure that, we understand at the top. Maureen, when we do this, yeah, there are guidelines that if there's things that are just deemed not, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's not suitable. It's garbage at this point for whatever reason. It's tattered. It's bad. What is the guideline? Because I know in other districts that I worked in for, they actually have put those out on a table and someone can come in and take those. Or we also talked about before as relief with all the devastation of the recent weather and with different parts of our country, that it could be donated there as well. But I just want to be perfectly clear.
That's my knowledge. If that's happening, that they're giving them away, taking the building, I wasn't aware of that. We generally bring them all over to Central Shipping and Receiving. We have a couple different avenues that we use to see if people want them. One is the summer rec program. One used to be the insurance. I can't think of this department. We used to send them somewhere too. And then after that, they would go to the summer.
Okay, but who's in charge of making sure that that's happening? Because I don't think anybody's taking charge of that.
That's my concern, because I've heard from some of the staff members that they were told they were not
That's
allowed
right.
to give them to the students, that they
Yep.
had to be trashed. So
Yep.
that's a concern to me.
So everybody's
because-
doing something different
Right.
because nobody's taking
So
charge.
let me follow up with legal, I'll talk to Bethany Central tomorrow to see what we're able to do in that situation. Because again, it's kind of like we were just talking about with school lunches. We were having that conversation. Some things just, they get thrown out. I just want to make sure that we're able to do a certain thing, that we're not jamming up the district in an effort to do something good, that I don't want to make the district liable. If they say, yes, absolutely, you can donate those books to needy districts because of the weather, or our own in-house within our own district of students that don't have a lot of resources. I will do that first thing tomorrow, and I'll be able to respond back to the board on the weekly memo.
It would be entirely shocking if New York State did not allow it. I mean, that would not be out of the realm of possibility.
And that's unfortunately probably the answer, but.
Something to.
Yeah, so now that I'm working with librarians, and I've created these policies before, there are reasons why you wouldn't want to ship your books out, right? They might be inappropriate, outdated, bad information, right, been sitting on your shelves, nobody's touched them in 10 years. So there should be a process that you go through where you're doing an analysis of those books. Why are you discarding them? Which ones could be donated? Which ones shouldn't be donated? So there should be a process for that. So let me explore that with the librarians first to see what the current procedures are. And then if there are holes in those procedures, then we'll work with the district to shore that up.
Okay, because that's my concern, because if you say that somebody's going to do it and then nobody does it, then they're in the trash.
And I'll just add to that. I think, to Ms. Fishman's point, what I'm hearing is, at least from my perspective, I'm hearing a desire that if it's legal, then our preference is that, especially when it comes to reading materials, that we use it within our district to benefit our students first, and then certainly outside.
Absolutely, and the only reason I bring it up is I looked through the list of the books, and there was like 200 early reader books, which, I mean, I don't know how that could be outdated. It's teaching.
Gender,
Okay.
cultural, bias, insensitivity.
Okay.
You never know. If something's bought in 1970.
Somebody said Dr. Seuss is politically incorrect, for God's sakes. I mean, come on.
Right, and I'm fine with the librarians being involved in the conversation, and, you know, because from what I've heard, there are several books that they would be disheartened to have to throw into the garbage that students could, very, very well use in their homes that they can't afford to buy
In a prior lifetime, when I was a teacher for 10 years in the district in Onondaga County, probably one of the wealthiest, there were a lot of books, and they were in great condition. And I had said, you know, my mother's a teacher at Shea Middle School in the city of Syracuse. Can we donate? No. They have to be thrown out, is what I was told. And I couldn't believe it. These were good books. I was told by that, and it was not ESM, I was not a teacher there, but I was told they had to be thrown out. And I scratched my head at that. So we will absolutely get to the bottom of that.
So I appreciate Mr. Colabufo following up whenever he has information on that, but I'll still ask Pearl to put it on our unfinished business, because public hearing the conversation. I know one of the things before I was on the board was then you don't hear the resolution, so if we just follow up on it next meeting, it'll be quick. So all that, if there is no more discussion, all those in favor of accepting item H in its entirety? That is accepted. So I would just add before we go on to item I that I'd like to thank the North Sportsman Club for the donation that we just accepted to the rifle team. Very much appreciated.
I make a motion to accept I in its entirety.
Item I, which is both our instructional and non-instructional personnel in its entirety. And it is a long one, so just take a second, make sure. Mr. McCarthy has made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Loyer, any discussion? All those in favor of accepting I in its entirety? It's unanimous.
Tom,
Mr. Colabufo?
you going to make a comment?
Yes.
Yes, I would like.
Microphone.
I would like to congratulate Damon Villeneuve is here. We're very, very excited to have him as our dean at Paul V. Moore. He's got a long history at Paul V. Moore. His heart is in Central Square and in that building, and we're really excited to have you on board. Congratulations. I'd also Julie Frank. We're very excited to have Julie Frank as approved probationary appointment, teaching assistant, Hastings Mallory. So if we can recognize Julie Frank.
Great, and with that, I will make a motion that the Central Square Central School District Board of Education hereby move into executive session to discuss the sale or lease of a building with no action to follow. Second. Mr. Loyer, any discussion? There is no action to follow, so you're welcome to stay if you'd like, but with that, we'll move into executive. Oh, sorry, all those in favor? We'll move into executive.